Hi everyone! A few days ago, a very nice attacking game was played between Anish Giri, who represents the Netherlands, and the Indian prodigy, the Gukesh. They met at the Tata Steel tournament that is played in the village of Veiganse. So let's start analyzing this game and learn some ideas about how to prepare a sound attack. So here, Giri started with the move d4, and after knight to f6 we get an Indian defense. White played c4, and after e6 and knight to f3, here Gukesh played the move d5, which transposes the game back into the queen's gambit declined. And after knight to c3, here Gukesh played the move bishop to b4. Here bishop to e7 and then castling is a very solid option for black, but Gukesh, being a young player, plays a more ambitious move, which is nowadays quite popular at the top level, which is called the Ragozin defense, and the idea is to develop the bishop to a more active square, pinning this knight, so now black can try to get more play on the center, but on the other hand, the bishop is going to be far away from the king, and as we see, this is going to be an important thing in this game. So here, white continued with the move bishop to g5, pinning the knight, and here black played the move h6, and here white took on f6. White could have tried bishop to h4 to keep the pin, but here black might have ideas either to take on c4 or to play the move g5. This move is sometimes risky, but here black didn't castle so far, so this idea can be considered. And then after bishop to g3, play a move like knight to e4. So here we can see one of the ideas of the move bishop to b4, that now the knight on c3 is pinned. So after knight to e4, black gets quite a playable position. So here after h6, white captured on f6, and after queen takes, white played the move e3, planning to develop the bishop. Here black castled, and now white played the move rook to c1. This rook is normally gonna be well placed on the c-file. And here black captured on c4. Black's main idea is to get some play on the center, but playing a move like c5 directly would not work very well, because here white can first take on d5, and after taking on c5, we see how this pawn on d5 can become a target. That's why black decided to first take on c4. So here black captured on c4, and after bishop takes, black played the move c5. Here white castled, and we see that overall we get what might look like a quiet position, but we have some imbalances. First of all, black gets the two bishops against a bishop and a knight, but this is compensated by white having slightly better control over the center with this pawn on d4, and white having quicker development. So here white can connect the rooks pretty quickly. After moving the queen, the rooks are going to be connected, whereas black still has to solve some problems with the pieces on the queen side. The knight on b8 and the bishop on c8 need to be developed. This rook on a8 is also quite passive. So we get a position where black still has to solve some problems. Here in this position, black took on d4, and here white could capture on d4, but white decided to spice things up a little bit and play the move knight to e4, attacking the queen before capturing on d4. And here in this position, black played queen to e7. Black already has to be a bit careful. For example, after queen to g6, bishop to e3 might create some threats against the queen. For example, after pawn takes, knight to h4 is already quite strong. This queen is lacking squares. Black might take on f2, but this won't change the position. And after the queen moves, h7 is the only square. Then after knight to f6, white gives a check, but also attacks the queen, and white is winning material. So here Gukesh correctly played the move queen to e7, and here after a3 and bishop to a5, now white captured on d4, and this position has been played many times by top players, and the most common move here is to take with the queen. But in these positions, black has managed to hold the balance. For example, after a move like rook to d8, we get a position again on which white has better development, but black has the two bishops. And here in this position, after a move like queen to c5, the position is fairly balanced. But instead, here Giri played the move e takes e4. So this move has the advantage of having a good control over the e5 square, But on the other hand, this pawn on d4 is now isolated, so in the long run it can become a target. So here white is taking some positional risks in order to get attacking chances. So here black played the move rook to d8, putting pressure on the pawn on d4. And here Giri played this very interesting move, rook to c2. Here white wants to play a rook on the e file because it would be eyeing the queen on e7, but rook to e1 is not possible because the bishop on a5 is controlling the e5 square. Playing b4 was possible, but this would also improve the bishop and bring it to b6, where it would attack the pawn on d4. So here Giri played a move which is quite subtle, which is rook to c2, with the idea to bring the rook to e2. And here Gukesh played an interesting plan, which is on the other hand quite ambitious, and in this case his ambition didn't pay off, and played the move bishop to d7. Here the move knight to c6 is in my view the most natural way to continue, developing as quickly as possible because black is still a bit underdeveloped. But here black played the move bishop to d7, and after rook to e2, we see how this rook will try to create some ideas against the queen. Here black's idea was to go bishop to c6. Again, knight to c6 is in my view the most natural move, but on the other hand here the bishop on d7 would be quite passive, but this is still a more solid option for black. But here black played the move bishop to c6, so the idea was to activate the bishop to c6. The bishop here is quite good, but on the other hand black is still delaying the development of the knight on b8, which, spoiler alert, never left that square throughout the game. So here white played the move queen to c2, and now black played the move bishop to b6. Taking on e4 was a solid option, but here Gukesh is probably trying to play for an advantage. Bishop to b6 also makes sense. The bishop here is attacking this pawn on d4. And here white played rook f to e1, doubling rooks on the e-file. And this position is already quite risky for black. Let's try to understand why. If we take a look at the king side, we see how white has 4 pieces and black only has the queen on e7. So this already tells us how black is pretty much playing on one side of the board, and we see that black's king is on the king side. So black's king might become under attack if white manages to coordinate his pieces on the king side. Additionally, the queen on c2, even though it is on the queen side, it is eyeing some squares on the king side. So here black has to be very careful not to fall under attack. So just to give you an idea, in this position taking this pawn on d4 is actually quite bad, because after knight e to g5, which as we'll see is the main idea in the position, black is planning to invade on h7, and if black captures, then after rook takes e6, pawn takes and rook takes, now white is getting a crushing attack, attacking the queen and also planning some discovered attacks against the king. So we can already see white's attacking potential in this position. And black's position is actually quite hard to play. Here, a move like knight to d7, which is a logical way to develop the knight, is also not that strong, because white also gets this idea of playing d5, creating some tactical ideas against the queen. For example, after pawn takes, white can still insist with this idea of knight e to g5, attacking the rook and planning to invade on h7, and this is already a crushing position for white. So here in this position, black's best try was to play the move bishop to d5, but this would also lead to a better position for white. That's why it was probably very hard for black to defend in this position. So here after bishop to d5, white would simply trade on d5. Again, taking with the pawn is quite bad because it would open the e-file for the rooks. And after rook takes, here if black could develop and play knight to c6 and then double rooks, black would be doing fine. But white gets this idea of playing d5 after knight to c3, the rook has to move, and after d5 we see how this pawn is pinned. So this is also quite a good position for white. For example, after knight to d7, white can take on e6, and after some exchanges we get this position where black has some weak pawns, but on the other hand black has very good chances to defend this position. For example, a knight might come to f8 and defend the pawn e6, but this is a position on which white is pretty much pressing for free. But on the other hand, the move played by Gukesh was actually losing on the spot with correct play. So here Gukesh played the move king to h8. And this move is a move that we should think about twice, because again here black is underdeveloped and moving the king and wasting time is just extremely dangerous. Black's idea was probably to get out of this diagonal because, as we saw in some lines, white is getting an attack against the king on g8, but this is just too slow. And if we see the same idea that we discussed about a few minutes ago, that white has many more pieces on the king side, it is now a matter about making sure that white's attack can break through or not. And here Anish Giri, after calculating for quite some time, played this very nice move, knight e to g5, with a similar idea that we discussed about attacking black's king. So white is planning to give a checkmate on h7. If black plays g6, white can sacrifice pretty much anywhere on f7, or even taking with the rook is also very strong. And then after rook takes, white is just getting too many threats. Taking on g6 is a big threat. So this is again crushing for white. That's why here Gukesh played pawn takes g5. And here taking on g5 is not possible because the queen is covering the square. But after sacrificing a knight, now white sacrificed even a rook. And after pawn takes and rook takes, white is still insisting with this idea of knight takes g5 if the queen on e7 moves. So after a move like queen to f8 and knight takes, this is also again a crushing idea for white. Queen to h7 is a big threat. If black covers that square, queen to g6 is also another big threat. So this is just a crushing position for white. So here in this position, black tried queen takes e6, giving back some material, and after bishop takes, black is even doing fine material speaking because black gets 2 rooks and a minor piece for 2 pawns. But again, black's king on h8 is just very lonely, so white attack is gonna be successful. Here black tried taking on f3, trying to remove an attacker. Here taking the knight was also quite good because white gets a lot of attacking ideas in this position. But Giri made it even more spectacular and played the move queen to f5, planning to play queen to h3 and giving a checkmate. Black tried bishop to e4, and after queen takes, black tried rook takes c4. Here white has to be a bit careful, but in any case, the queen and the bishop can combine very well to attack. Queen to f3 was played, covering the d1 square. This is the only thing white has to be careful about. Rook to d1, delivering a background checkmate is black's idea, but queen to d1 is covering that square. And after g4, queen to f8, king to h7, bishop to f5, giving a check. Black tried king to h6, after g6 and queen to f7, black's king is gonna be just too exposed. For example, if king to h6, queen takes is a checkmate, or after king to h8, white can give some checks and then capture the pawn on g6 with a check. For example, after king to h8, queen takes, then white will play g3 and continue with the attack. So here black tried king to h6, and after bishop to c2, in this position, amazingly, black even resigned. Again, black is materially doing fine, but this king is just way too exposed. In this position, white has ideas to play queen to h8 or queen to f5. This knight cannot develop because black's rook on a8 would be hanging, and it is just very hard for black to avoid these threats. For example, after rook to d2, white can simply give a check on f4. White even gets a checkmate in attack, not to mention that the rook on d2 would be hanging. Or black plays bishop to c7, trying to cover the square. Queen to h8 is also very strong, and after king to g7, queen takes, again, black's king is falling under a checkmate in attack. For example, after king to f4, queen to f6 is a checkmate. So this was a pretty crushing game by white. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to know more about how to develop a successful attack, you might want to check my video about it. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.